Welcome to Vator Box. I'm Bambi Francisco.
And I'm Ezra Rosen.
This week, our guest host is Jeff Smith. He is the founder and CEO of Smule, which is a maker of popular iPhone apps like Ocarina and Lead Trombone. Jeff is also, or has also been a founder of a publicly traded company, Tumbleweed. He started Tumbleweed, took that public, and started Envoy, and sold that to Novelty. So that's why we have Jeff here, because he's going to be very helpful, helping the founders and the teams at these startups that we're going to be looking at understand their business.
Founders and co-founders of these
Founders
businesses.
and co-founders, and Jeff, yes. Jeff is the co-founder of Smule. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, my co-founder, Go Wong, is an extremely talented guy also.
Cool. Okay. Well, we're going to start by taking a look at Nimbuzz.
Hi, this is Tobias from Nimbuzz. I'm head of communications for Nimbuzz. We're a mobile startup, and I'll quickly introduce you to our company. Nimbuzz is a social interaction service aggregating communities with VoIP, presence, and IM. Those are our core business propositions. We were founded in 2006 and launched in May this year. We have offices in Holland, Argentina, and Brazil, growing at about 10,000 registered downloads a day. We've received 25 million in funding from Mangrove Capital, Naspers, MIH, and Cold Spring Ventures, who recently set and Kite. We basically are an instant messaging platform for your PC, for your mobile phone, and for the web. We combine communities like Skype, MSN, Gtalk, AOL, ICQ, Yahoo, you name it, social networks and communities into one contact list.
So this business has some things I think are kind of cool. It's leveraging a lot of high growth areas. So Skype, social networking, IM, and so on. And there are some somewhat successful companies or very successful companies generally similar. So Meebo being kind of a Uber product that's on top of different IMs is one that comes to mind. Has generated a huge amount of traffic and a lot of users, but it also has some challenges. So I think we'll kind of cover some of those. So there's opportunity just because the tide is rising so fast. Now the question becomes, can they develop something really novel that they can make money on?
So let me just, because I have the iPhone app on my phone, and so from a novelty standpoint, I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, I haven't really found the need, so maybe this is an interesting point. I haven't found the need to want to connect to my Facebook, to my AIM, to my Skype, and to my multiple communities on my iPhone, but I did do it with Nimbuzz, and I do find it kind of interesting that I can see, which Facebook friend and which AIM buddy is online. Mm-hmm. I think from a novelty perspective, I think that's pretty neat.
I think it's a useful product, and I think that the CEO is very capable and clearly articulate.
I think that was the marketing guy.
Yeah, well, okay, the marketing guy.
He should be the CEO then.
And yeah, it's your job, dude. Don't let him get in your way. Go take it. It's yours. Yeah. And it's nice to see some European companies out here. And candidly, in the mobile market, we got to look to Europe as the leaders here. The U.S. we're kind of really followers as it relates to the mobile marketplace, and so I think it's very natural that you're going to see a European firm emerge as a leader in the space. So I like the product. Clearly, they're acquiring a ton of customers at a very rapid clip.
25,000 actually updated. 25,000 a day, 750,000 users. So.
Right. So I mean, this is real. So, but there are questions. There are questions.
Yeah. I mean, if you connect connecting a lot of free things together doesn't spontaneously generate something that people will pay for. So I think the trick becomes, how do you add some really important value on top of it? So when we were playing around with it, and you said, well, look, I can use my Skype out. And the reality is that's great. They catalyze a transaction for Skype, but they didn't necessarily catalyze a transaction for themselves. Okay. So the trick becomes, what do you do here to essentially create a layer of value that is a place for people to make money?
So thanks for jumping over the novelty right into competition. That's what we were going to get to, but that's okay.
What? Gridlock!
Well, so building on this leapfrog thing, so let's grant the novelty, or partially grant the novelty. For me, it's more granting usefulness. For example, on the iPhone, how many applications am I going to really have? How many of them am I going to really use? Is it nice to have something that's aggregating all of those social services that I want to use together? Yeah,
right.
That's useful. I mean, for me, I look at the challenges as monetization challenges and kind of almost what's the exit here challenge, because on that latter point, okay, in the end, what are you? What do you have? What asset do you have? Do you have IP? In this case, not so much, because you're layered on top of these third-party services. Do you have brand? You're building a brand, but really, I mean, the value proposition is about aggregating these other brands that people know and love and are using, you know, Facebook, Twitter, the rest, AIM. I think in the end you have customers. I think that's the value that this business is building right now, and that's the statistic that they kind of point out there as part of their growth. But the question I have is what is the switching cost for those customers? And to me, it's extremely low. To me, it's going to take, you know, all of 10 seconds for somebody to delete this app and then use the app straight from Facebook that has some type of AIM integration, or the AIM app. In other words, to go back to the brand that is backed up with the IP. And so I'm not opposed to businesses that are aggregators of third-party technology and in the end are acquiring lots of customers, but only if they can kind of limit the switching costs for the customer, if they're in deep with that customer. Like if I'm an appliance company and I'm selling to enterprises, I got a piece of iron sitting on that network. It's a pain to pull it off the network.
Yeah,
Right?
and who was it made the point about, I think that's a great point, and then and following on that, who was it that made that point about sort of aggregated content that I think it was Max Levchin from Slide. He said what keeps it sticky is that when people add in their own stuff, and all of a sudden their stuff combines with other people's stuff, and now the new compilation creates a new tier of content.
Right.
So, you know, following on Jeff's point, if Nimbuzz can somehow create the Nimbuzz content layer, where basically people have a hook that they have to basically be in Nimbuzz to have access to, it's something along that plane, then I think that they really get some, they gotta get some stickiness there. They get a hook.
Good points. What about competition? We didn't talk about that. Are there other types of companies that do this? I'm sure there are.
Yes, I mean, I think you already named a few, but I think that, you know, and then there's sort of the old kind of Trillion approach, and I mean, there's a lot of companies who have tried to aggregate different services, and you know, who currently are aggregating services, and frankly, there's the services themselves. I mean, I think, you know, how hard is it for Facebook to basically try to, you know, connect to other services at some point?
Yeah, I don't think they have defensible IP right now. They're obviously good at porting. They've gone to a bunch of different mobile platforms, but in the end, you know, anybody could figure out how to port. And so what strikes me about this company is they've raised a lot of capital.
25 million.
Right. So what's the return on the capital thus far? It's this customer base. I don't think there's a ton of revenue yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's.
Mom, hold on, get the phone. We're gonna retake there. Yeah, we're gonna make the capital 20.
That's fine.
Right.
Okay.
So I think look.
Hold on. Okay. So they've raised a lot of money.
They've raised a ton of money. Okay, what's been the return on that capital thus far?
Well, they don't make any revenue, and
right. They got a nice big customer base, but a risk of losing it. I don't think they're sitting on a brand yet. I don't think they're sitting on a lot of IP.
Although they're top number 22, we both looked, free social network.
Well, they're the number two. They're the number 22 in the social networking category on the iPhone, which today is the biggest market for applications in the mobile space. But that means they're probably 200 overall in free apps. They're probably adding, you know, a couple thousand a day at most on the iPhone. So maybe they were ranked higher, but it's not a Skype that's hanging out there in the top 50. It's not a Facebook that's hanging out there in the top 50. And I bring up those two examples, you know, which are kind of unfair because, look, these are established companies, but yet it's a well-known brand with IP that's back behind it. Yeah. And they're acquiring customers at a much more rapid rate than these folks are. So if I'm the board of directors, it's like, okay, what is the exit strategy and what's the asset that I'm ultimately going to invest in and own? And I'm not sure they found it yet.
So what do you think? I mean, if there's, you know, they risk switching costs, easy switching costs.
Oh, yeah.
They risk charging consumers then because
it's free. So that tells you something, right? If it's free, what does that mean?
I don't think that they plan on charging consumers.
Well, charging consumers would kill the adoption. I mean, Skype wouldn't have been Skype at $1 a month. But it would, you know, I think so. The trick becomes.
But they had a freemium model. They had the model where, you know, you could.
Yeah. There could be some back-end advertising opportunities here. I mean, you have the consumer, you have a relationship with the consumer. I think, you know, I think they have to do some stuff that makes their layer unique and different.
I think they're focused on that, or they're planning on that. But what about selling to operators? I think I talked to Tobias, actually, he said one of the ideas they're thinking about is charging a T-Mobile or AT&T and saying, hey, you know, you could sell this to your AT&T user subscriber.
Yeah, I think those days are numbered. I think that ultimately what's happened with the iPhone is that the carrier is now taking a second row seat to the hardware vendor, and the hardware vendor is now directly integrated with the consumer and the third-party software vendors, and it worked. Okay, this is the first time it worked, and until then it was like, yeah, I can make friends with the carrier, I can be bundled on their deck. That kind of didn't work. And now we have, what, 20, 30 app stores that are sprouting up, every few months. So I think that, yeah, you could squeeze some money out of the carriers, and they'll say, yeah, we'll put you on the deck or what have you. But in the end, is that going to really give you long-term customers, or is that going to give you short-term revenue for the carrier?
Okay. We probably covered a lot of advice here already, but if you guys have 15 seconds of advice for this company that's got $25 million, clearly have a lot of big-name investors.
I mean, I think what they've done so far is fundamentally impressive. They've gotten close to 1 million people to use their product. That's hard to do. So, and I would assume there's some consumption because they're getting new users.
25,000 downloads a day.
Now, and how many of those are engaged? But I mean, so versus tire kickers. So I mean, the reality is, if they're getting some meaningful core group, look in that group. Give it plenty of sample size there to find out what the core group is really using it for. And I'm sure they're doing this, but that find out what that is and just put that on steroids. So figure out what you got to do to make that thing really valuable, and then add in something which is uniquely yours.
Yeah, I would be inclined to, unfortunately, once again, to agree with Ezra here. What's going to make this company $100 million in sales? Focus on that. You got a nice customer base. That was enough to secure the funding. I think now it's time to move on to the next phase of the business plan.
And at least we know that Tobias Kemper, he's doing a great job at marketing.
Yeah.
So he's an excellent pitchman.
Yeah, and again, I think there's a lot to learn from the mobile market from Europe.
Yeah.
Great. Ezra, thanks. Jeff, thanks a lot. Okay, so you've been watching Vator Box. I'm Bambi Francisco. We'll see you next time on Vator News.